Hello and welcome back to HEMA Fight Breakdowns. Today I am going to do another full fight review, but this time with a bit of an emphasis on dealing with hand shots. So I've made videos about dealing with hand shots and various things that you can do, but I've never done a full review on basically watching somebody through the course of a fight adapt to deal with, sometimes successfully, sometimes not, with hand shots. And I think this is going to be very valuable for people because I think that's probably the number one question most people have once they get out of that little beginner level of HEMA competition, which is, hey, this person just keeps sniping me in the hands every single time I try to aggress them. What can I do about it? And sometimes you give advice like, oh, change your guard, do this, do that. But it never really comes into play until you're in the fight, and people will still try to do that and not realize that your hands are always open. Your hands are always a target. There's really not a lot you can do to prevent somebody from hitting their hands if that's what they are going to do. So the mitigations that you have to do really are ones that you have to make during the fight, not really before. So, and I thought this was a pretty good example of that. So we're going to watch this full fight on mute because the person holding the camera was talking a little bit. But specifically, we break down all these exchanges and look to see what adjustments get made and why they're successful or not. So off of this first one, you probably saw it right about here, but this hand shot does land right there. And the reason it lands is because this person is standing in a guard where their cross guard is basically angled with their knuckles. They're in, I think, what most people call hammer grip. It's a very, very common grip to be in. And basically, you can't see it because of the camera, but their left hand is not protected by the crossguard. So as a result, this cut came right down, hit on the hand, and then the response cut afterwards was just deemed out of tempo. But this is something you see all the time. If you commit forward to your first shot as a hand shot, it's often that you can pick at those targets. The second thing we see is that an adjustment already gets made. So if we go back here and we look at the guard that this person was sitting in, they were in sort of a plow with their cross guard, again, aligned with their knuckles and really threatening a stab. What we see now is more of a kind of a low vom tog, and these hands and these elbows are tucked in and pulled back so that they're not as much of a target. But what we see pretty quickly, I believe, on this exchange is that that hand shot is still an option. So here, this person aggresses with an Oberhau. It looks like they just about land it, but the exact same time as that happens, this hand shot clips them again on the left hand. So I think they gave this person a point for, deep target versus shallow target, but you can see that the hand shot is still a bit of a factor. Getting past the long discussion, we see we're back to the plow, and we get the real adaptation that comes from this person over here. So before, all of their hand shots have come above, down descending cuts onto the left hand because of the position that this person was standing in. But now they're a lot more aware of that hand cut coming in. And the hand cut that they throw instead is one that I see a lot of people get caught with, which is this one. So a lot of people, I think, don't give this kind of cut a lot of respect. But that's because what they don't necessarily appreciate is how well the descending hand cuts will set up the ascending hand cuts. So if you think about it, you're down here in your plow and you've been getting hit in the left hand. What is the one thing that you're going to do the second you see your opponent, raise their sword to hit you? You're going to shift your plow from right plow to left plow. Basically, just put your cross guard in front of your hands, kind of pull your left hand back behind your right hand, and use your cross guard to be defensive. But when you do that, what you're also doing is you're lowering your left hand ever so slightly, and you're pointing your tip up. So you can see here, this person has pushed their arms and their elbows and their shoulders towards that left side to try to parry that hand cut. But as they did, this person ducked under, came up from underneath, and hit them right on the bottom of the hand. And this was perfect because, as I say in a lot of other instances, the perfect feint, the perfect setup for a cut is one in which you force your opponent into a defensive position from which they can't attack you, and then you hit them, and then you get out. And that's exactly what happens here. They feint this cut to the hand that they've done already a few times. They come up underneath, they cut them in the hands, and because of the overcommitment to the parry here, they couldn't just stab right back. And as they pull their sword back up to kind of get into a more comfortable Vomtog position, the exchange is already over. So that's the adaptations we've seen here. But what we see next is the adaptations on the other side against the hand cuts. So the hand cuts are still coming out, and then this happens. So what happens here is that after telegraphing a couple of hand cuts, that's the intention, and I believe right here, this happens. So the person over here misses a hand cut, and upon missing that hand cut the second time, which happens rather fast, they basically overextend to get there, and right when this happens, this person comes right back in with a committed action. Now, the good thing and the bad thing about this is that attacking right after somebody misses is always a good idea. Most people, right after they miss an attack, the first thing they're going to do is pull back into their comfortable guard, like this. The problem is that missing a hand cut does not really overextend you much, even when you're in a deep lunge, as far as your hands are concerned. And pulling back up into a guard takes very little time. It takes exactly, in this case, the same amount of time as missing this cut and going back to the guard takes for this person to basically commit to an action. So the problem is while they have committed to throwing a deep attack immediately after this person missed, this person was able to pull their guard up and then reassert another hand shot before this person was able to really get to the distance that they wanted to be at. So when they come forward, they get hit in the hands and then they return a deep target immediately after. I think the intent here was that right about this point, they would have, taken the hand shot on the crossguard, but it just missed that by, a couple of fractions of a second. But this is the first real attempted adjustment to these hand shots, which is ignore them and go for a deep target. But obviously, it's not the best adjustment that you can possibly make, given that, trying to exploit someone's miss and then reattacking them didn't happen fast enough. But in this particular case, they land, close enough together that you could say that deep target versus hand shot, you're going to give credit to the deep target for that. The next adaptation you see is against that undercut. So basically, what the adaptation has been so far is that this person is dancing in and out of distance, trying to get this person to overcommit to a hand shot to create an opening. They sort of were successful in that last exchange in doing so by tricking them into missing that hand shot and then committing to a deep strike. They managed to land that deep strike, but they didn't quite do it fast enough. And the result was that this person was able to pull their hand snipe back in before it landed. But on this next one, things go a little bit differently. So this person adapts. Instead of trying to make this person miss by dodging out of the way, they instead parry it in a very particular way. So one thing I talked about before was that one of the weaknesses of trying to parry a hand cut like this is that you have to shift your plow from your right side to your left side in this case. And that can take a little bit of time and it can get your point offline. But in this case, what instead happened was that they performed a Zorn Ort. And what that means is that they did a short, choppy little Oberhau cut into the line of this hand shot. And this does two important things. One, it takes them out of this point offline plow where their left hand is exposed, and it puts the left hand behind the right hand and behind the crossguard. So what this means is that as you cut into the line of this hand shot, you give yourself the advantage of protecting your hands with your crossguard, and you have the advantage of intercepting this hand shot cut as it's coming through, pushing it a little bit further offline and ensuring that you don't accidentally just throw your elbow or your forearm into the same zone. So if you imagine, you have your up in your Vomtog and your left hand is exposed, as you bring your right hand forward and your left hand back to try to throw that Oberhau, what you also do is you extend your left arm. And if you're not careful to close the line and pull your sword all the way over to the line of your left arm, your elbows can stick out and your forearm can stick out. And you can get hit in what would have been the hand, but now in the arm, the exact same way as, that has been happening this entire fight. But they do close the line appropriately, and they get this thrust on line. And in my opinion, this is one of the best versions of a Zorn art that you can have, because as much as Zorn is usually translated to wrath, and a Zorn is generally considered a wrathful strike at the blade, it does not have to have that much emphasis on it. And in a lot of ways, the less emphasis you put on that Zorn, the more likely you are to have your point online already the second the blades make contact. And this is really a perfect adaptation to hand cuts. So if you're getting picked apart by hand cuts and you're tired of that happening, there's two adaptations that you really need to make. One, move in and out of distance, because hand shots work by hitting people at a distance where you can hit them and they can't hit you. They can touch you on the hands, but if you extend your arms all the way forward, you can only hit them in the hands and not, the head or the chest. So you can't get that advantageous exchange. What you're looking to do is you're looking to do that light little Zorn and respond with a thrust on the hand cuts that come from above. And on the ones that come from below, that short little Zorn is going to allow you to pull your hands back in time and dodge in other ways and void in other ways. Because the issue with the adaptation that first happened from this person is that they overcommitted their left Zorn, and the result was that it opened them up to that undercut. So this is really the flow chart placed as exactly as it can be through the course of this fight. And it shows you exactly the kind of adaptations you can be making, both to land hand shots and to deal with hand shots in your own fights. So that's going to be it for today. If you'd like to see your own footage featured on the channel, feel free to send me some footage over at HEMAFightBreakdowns@gmail.com, and I hope to see you next time.